What's going on, Tamers? East here, and man, I just gotta say, time flies. It feels like just yesterday we were talking about the Unification announcement, and by the end of this week, the English version and the Japanese version of the game will reach parity. We're gonna be playing the same game for the first time in the Digimon card game's history. And honestly, like, how cool is that? I can now take my Japanese deck over to like Europe or, America, and I can play the same game. And folks from those places can also just come to Japan or anywhere else in Asia and do the same thing. And with that revelation, I also wanted to pose a question to you folks out there watching right now. Would you be interested in doing online casuals? I wanted to start holding them regularly in my Discord server. I did a bit of a test run during the holiday back in December and the beginning of January, and they were actually pretty successful. So if you'd like to do that sort of thing, just kind of let me know in the comments below. I kind of want to just gauge interest right now. But anyway, we just wrapped up our third week of events for the BT20 Over the X set over here in Asia. And while I think these past couple of weeks have showed us what the strong decks are pretty quickly, I think there's still at least one deck out there that has some really unexplored potential, which we'll talk about today. With that said, let's take a look at some event results, a couple of key takeaways, and a closer look at some of the decks that topped over the course of the past week. So diving into last week's results, I think these past 2 weeks have taught us pretty quickly that BT20 does feel like the Royal Knights show, but this week they are forced to share the stage with Virus and Pyrodramon tying for the same number of wins at 9 apiece. And then dropping down to the champion level, and not far behind Virus and Pyrodramon is his blue-green counterpart, right next to two of the purple boogeymen in the game right now, Fenriloogamon and the Velvet Loop deck. And then looking at the rookies, I personally think this is where some of the most interesting decks with the most unlocked potential are in the game right now. When you take a look at things like Magnamon Armor, who now have the added benefit of Omnimon X Antibody, and Jessamon GX for added firepower, and things like Sakuyamon, who got the new Medieval Galmon recently, as well as the Sakuyamon Ace card, I think there's a lot to be explored here. And probably the most interesting deck, at least in my book, has got to be the combination of Sakuyamon and Talmon Loop. Again, this is just conjecture, but I think that with the addition of the new BT20 cards, this deck is hiding some very nasty grime. And if anyone has found it, we're likely not going to see it until Worlds happens later next month. Of course, I'll definitely keep my eyes peeled, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out, as well as for more Digimon card game content shuffled directly into your YouTube feed. And then looking at the in-training level, you've got all manner of crazy decks popping up. Things like Alphamon trying to combine some of the older stuff with some of the new Chronicle cards and beyond. Things like Digipolice, Dexdodogodamon, who we haven't seen in a minute, as well as things like Justimon with the love of his life, Mother D Reaper, as God intended, by the way.
Boo this man!
And then even crazy decks like Aggro Puppet, which you might take a look at a little bit later today. So the first list we're going to take a look at today is going to be Fenriloogamon, a deck that has seen incredible and also very surprising support from BT20. This list here you see is actually from a player in my local region called YKK, and he has been terrorizing locals with this thing. The deck largely functions as it always has, using cards like the level 6 Fenriloogamon and Kazuchimon cards in order to DNA Digivolve into your Fenriloogamon Takumi Kazuchi level 7 for a very powerful one-turn KO. And some of the new cards introduced in BT20 enable it to do that even more efficiently. Things like the BT20 Loogamon Searcher. Surprisingly, an in-archetype level 3 Searcher was something this deck had always lacked, but with this guy you're able to pick up one Seekers or SOC card and an AG Tamer, which basically is anything in the deck at this point. The added benefit here is that this is actually super useful because the new Kazuchimon level 6 card that the deck utilizes has the Seekers trait, which is also searchable by this card. One of the drawbacks of this deck was that there was actually no way to actually search out the Kazuchimon in the past. You were just hoping to either hit it with your Analog Youth card in order to just trash it to the security immediately, or to just draw it into hand and then discard it yourself. And speaking of the level 6 Kazuchimon for just a moment, the old Kazuchimon had an on-evolve effect, but you never were able to proc it because it was always being played directly from the trash. But thanks to the new Codecracker Fang and Hacker Judge Tamer card, whenever you play the new Kazuchimon onto the board, you can mind link the Tamers immediately and use its own evolve effect as part of its own effect. This, by the way, is particularly useful against decks that are able to hide behind Tamers like hybrids, because the effect from the Kazuchimon lets you rest a Tamer and then suspend it for a turn. And if somehow that wasn't enough to already sell you on the new Kazuchimon card, well, its inheritance effect is even crazier. It lets you recover security whenever one of your security is removed, which functions perfectly with the Fenriloogamon Takumi Kazuchi's effect to trash both players' security at the same time. This deck was already strong before BT20 and is now even more powerful as a result. And if you're going to Worlds or you're watching World, I definitely recommend you familiarize yourself with this list of cards. Sakuyamon is back as folks are starting to move away from the min-max version of Talmon loop in favor of more reliable draws for the deck overall. And this list here tries to strike a balance between those two styles of play. You'll see at the top in here they removed some of the Ruin modes and the Kazuhamons in favor of a few new toys like the Chaosmon Balder Arm from BT20, as well as things like the Sakuyamon X antibody for increased firepower. Your level 3s here focus only on the Renamon cards, letting you search out the cards from the Digivolution line, as well as the Tamer cards and the coveted plugin options in the deck. Your next step is to play down your Rika Tamers using the BT19 Cubimon, and then from there it's options all the way home. You've got things like the Talmon Ace, which we've seen tons of before on this channel, which lets you play options for free, as well as the BT17, I believe, Talmon, who lets you play options for a cost minus. And then you can really turn on the firepower with the Sakuyamon cards, things like the regular Sakuyamon, who gives you a 6000 DP blocker, as well as Sakuyamon X Antibody, who gives you a 9000 DP Digimon with Rush. Also, the Sakuyamon X letting you unsuspend on attack gives you access to some crazy good plays with your level 7s, allowing you to potentially keep turns if you use cards like the Yellow Scramble. And you know, with the new Tamers cards finally releasing over in the West, and BT20 still being so new, I think this is one of the most interesting times to be a Sakuyamon fan. Each week I allow my champion level and higher YouTube members to vote on decks they want to see featured in these Meta Report videos, and this week they voted by a slim margin to see Puppet Aggro. If you'd like to vote on decks that you want to see covered in these kinds of videos, as well as other cool perks and bonuses like early access to my content, and the ability to vote on video topic and blog topics, consider becoming a YouTube member as well. Once again, I want to give a big shout out to all the folks who help support the channel, and with that, let's take a look at Puppet Aggro. So I call this deck Puppet Aggro, but honestly, this build does a lot defensively, which I think makes it even more interesting. The main crux is that you want to lean on the effects of the BT13 Pawn Chessmon cards, as well as the EX7 Arisa Kinosaki Tamer, so that whenever they are deleted or one of your puppets are deleted, you can replay another Chessmon named or puppet Digimon on the board. This way you can recycle your Digimon very quickly, but you can also use the added effect of the starter deck Arisa Kinosaki Tamer to give the new puppets on board Rush so they can attack immediately as well. From there, the name of the game is just keeping your hand replenished with enough puppet cards to be able to play down when your previous ones are deleted, and you can do this thanks to some of the cards like the Sistermon Blancs, as well as the Pawn Chessmon cards from the Arisa Kinosaki or the Yellow Liberator starter deck that came out not too long ago. And from there, you have the really interesting addition of the Gankumon and the Gankumon X Antibody from the BT20 set as a way to play down, evolve immediately, to de-digivolve your opponent's board, and then protect your entire board of pawns, or puppets in this case, from your opponent's Digimon's effects. With this, you can quickly do damage in the early game thanks to the Pawn Chessmon cards, who can then recycle themselves into other Pawn Chessmon cards or Sistermon Blancs as a way to get more card draw, and once you have a Sistermon Blanc on the board, you can then play down the Gankumon at a reduced cost of -4, so he's an 8 cost instead of a 12 cost, which is much better, honestly, for this deck. And to make matters crazier, you have a Jesmon GX Ace in the back as a second way to either protect your board or provide more offense on your own turn. And so with these kinds of cool plays at your disposal, who would have thought that Gankumon is the real king of the Chessmon cards? And with that, we're going to wrap up week 3 of the BT20 Over the X Meta Report over here in Asia. Before you folks head out, don't forget to let me know if you'd be interested in joining my online casuals event in the comments below. I just want to gauge interest right now. Anywho, with Worlds looming on the horizon, I think things are only poised to get more exciting, and with parity happening very soon, I look forward to seeing you folks on the field of battle. Anyways, I'm going to get out of here. Before you get out of here, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.